So, you're thinking about adding motion to your sim racing setup. Motion systems can completely transform the way you experience driving in your simulator. But with so many options out there, from small seat movers to full 6 degree of freedom rigs, choosing the right one can definitely feel overwhelming. In this guide, I'll break down the key things you need to know before buying a motion system, so you can make the right choice for your budget, your space, and your goals. A motion platform is essentially a mechanical system that translates telemetry data from a simulator into real-world movement. In other words, it takes the signals generated in the software, things like braking forces, cornering angles, curb strikes, or surface bumps, and turns them into physical cues that your body can actually feel. This alignment between what you see on screen and what your body senses makes the experience far more convincing. Depending on the design, motion rigs typically offer between 2 and 6 degrees of freedom. At the entry level, systems focus on heave, pitch, and roll, while more advanced setups also add surge, sway, and then yaw. Each of these axes plays a role in mimicking the forces and movements you'd experience in a real car. It's worth noting that these systems aren't built to throw you around like a roller coaster. Instead, they deliver precise, low-latency movements that stay in sync with the game's visuals. When this synchronization is done well, immersion skyrockets, and drivers often find themselves reacting quicker and with greater confidence. In short, a motion platform turns what would otherwise be a passive visual experience into something interactive and physically engaging. Today's platforms are almost always powered by electrical actuators, rather than hydraulic ones. This shift makes them cleaner, quieter, and easier to maintain. On the smaller side, you'll find seat mover systems, which provide clear motion cues while keeping the footprint compact. At the other end of the spectrum, full-frame or cockpit platforms offer longer actuator travel and higher load capacity, enabling a much broader range of motion and a more demanding level of immersion. The control process always starts with the simulator itself. The game generates streams of telemetry, things like speed, slip angle, vertical g-forces, sudden gusts of wind, and dozens of other variables. How accurate and detailed that data is depends largely on the quality of the game's physics engine. From there, the motion software takes over. It interprets and filters that information, blending long, gradual movements to represent sustained forces, with short, sharp cues for things like gear shifts, bumps, or sudden impacts. This balance prevents the rig from exceeding its physical limits, while still giving the driver an authentic sense of what's happening. The actuators respond to those instructions instantly, repeating the cycle many times per second to remain perfectly synchronized with the frame rate of the simulation. When the system is tuned correctly, you feel forces ramp up smoothly under braking, the chassis leaning naturally into corners, and quick jolts when your tires hit curbs or uneven sections of the track. The way our body makes sense of motion comes from three main sources: our eyes, our inner ear, and the signals from our muscles and joints. Your eyes tell you what's happening visually, your inner ear helps with balance and detecting movement, and your muscles and joints give you feedback on how your body is positioned. If those three don't match up, for example, the screen shows the car slamming on the brakes, but your body doesn't feel anything, your brain notices the mismatch. That can break the sense of realism, and for some people, can even cause discomfort. This is where a motion platform makes a big difference. By adding physical feedback that lines up with what you see on the screen, it removes that conflict and makes everything feel more natural. Over time, it even helps you build muscle memory. Your body starts to learn what weight transfer feels like, how drag sets in on the straights, or what it's like when the car begins to slide sideways. In other words, with a motion platform, you stop driving only with your eyes and start driving with your whole body. A motion platform adds another layer of feedback that your steering wheel and pedals can't fully provide. It lets you feel how the car moves under braking, through corners, and across different track surfaces. When you stomp on the brakes, the platform leans you forward, and the body cue helps you brake earlier perhaps and more smoothly before the tires lock. Through corners, the rig's rotation makes it easy to tell if the car is pushing wide with understeer or sliding out with oversteer. Instead of reacting late with just your eyes, your body feels it first, so your corrections come quicker and more naturally. Even the quick bumps when you ride curbs or the roll of the chassis at the track's edge teach you how much grip you have before things can get sketchy. This isn't only about immersion, it's about building consistency. Even a small seat mover at home gives your body those subtle reminders to help you stay sharp lap after lap, especially in long sessions. For anyone chasing realism, whether on triples or in VR, motion turns sim racing into something you just don't see, you actually live through your whole body. When people talk about degrees of freedom or DOF, they're describing the different ways something can move in a three-dimensional space. Think about a car on the road. It can speed up or slow down, turn left or right, and bounce up and down over bumps. Each of these movements is considered a separate degree of freedom. Motion platforms are built to replicate these same kinds of movements, turning game telemetry into physical motion cues that your body can feel. A simple 2 DOF setup might just tilt the seat forward and backward for braking and acceleration, while a more advanced 6 DOF platform can move in every direction, simulating the full range of forces a driver or pilot would encounter. In simulation, these degrees are grouped into 2 main types: translational movements, straight line motion; surge, forward and backward movement like acceleration or braking; sway, which is side to side motion for sliding or drifting; and then heave, which is vertical movement for things like bumps, curbs, or altitude changes. Then you have rotational movements, tilting or turning; pitch, which is tilting forward and backward; roll, tilting left or right; and then yaw, rotating left or right around a vertical axis. A full motion system with all 6 of these is called 6 DOF, but not every simulator needs the full range. Many of us at home start with 2 DOF or more commonly 3 DOF platforms, which still provide strong immersion, while training facilities often use full 6 DOF systems for professional driver or pilot preparation. Some systems even use clever motion cueing to fake certain effects, like combining pitch and heave motions to make your brain believe you're feeling more vertical movement than the rig is physically producing. Although the physics are the same, the way each DOF is used differs depending on whether you're simulating a race car or an aircraft. So here's a breakdown. Pitch in racing simulates weight transfer under braking or acceleration. For example, the nose dips when braking hard, helping you sense grip changes. On tracks with elevation, sustained pitch mimics climbing or descending hills. In a flight simulation, it controls the climb and dive angles, critical during takeoff, descent, and altitude changes. Sustained pitch represents the nose up or nose down altitude relative to the horizon. Now with roll in racing, this recreates body roll in corners, showing you how far the car leans under lateral forces. It helps drivers sense grip limits and balance in turns, especially useful for banked corners like on an oval track. Now in flight, this will simulate wing banking for coordinated turns. Sustained roll represents the aircraft's tilt relative to the horizon. Now with heave in racing, this mimics vertical forces from bumps, curbs, and uneven surfaces, giving you realistic suspension feedback and track texture. In flight, it represents altitude changes or turbulence, helping a pilot feel instability and adjust smoothly. With surge in racing, this captures the pushback in your seat when accelerating and the pull forward when braking, making engine power and braking force feel more natural. In flight, this mirrors thrust changes, such as the engine acceleration or drag slowing the plane, key for maintaining speed control. Now with sway in racing, this recreates sliding or drifting sideways, letting you feel the loss of grip when traction breaks. In a flight sim, this simulates lateral displacement from crosswinds or side slip, teaching pilots perhaps how to correct and maintain a straight flight path. Now lastly, yaw. This in racing lets you feel the car rotating when oversteering or understeering, making it easier to sense traction loss and then correct steering. In a flight, this represents rudder inputs, essential for coordinated turns, hovering, or countering crosswinds. So choosing the right DOF setup. Well, for most home sim racers, a 2 DOF seat mover or a 2.5 DOF platform, which is 2 actuators plus a pivot for partial extra movement, is often the best entry point. These give strong braking acceleration and cornering cues without needing a lot of space or a complex setup. If your goal here is professional training, whether you're preparing for track days or a pilot for real-world flight, then 6 DOF systems are going to be the gold standard. They deliver the complete range of motion needed to replicate everything from hard braking zones to turbulence at altitude. At the end of the day, understanding DOF is the key to choosing the right platform for you, whether you want to train more effectively or just enjoy the thrill of driving and flying at home. DOF is what makes a simulator feel more than just a game. It starts to make it feel real. Motion systems bring the physical side of driving and flying into the simulator. The jump from a simple 2 DOF seat mover to a full 6 DOF platform isn't just about adding more actuators, it's about how close the experience feels to reality. Each setup represents a trade-off between cost, footprint, and immersion. So let's go through the most common configurations and what they deliver. 2 DOF or a seat mover. A 2 DOF rig usually moves the seat itself, tilting forward, backward for pitch and side to side for roll. Because it moves your whole upper body, the feedback feels surprisingly strong while keeping the hardware compact. Now, seat movers are affordable, easy to install, and popular with people at home starting out in motion. 2.5 DOF. These are actuators with a pivot. Adding a pivot point changes the feeling dramatically. 2 actuators tilt the cockpit around a fixed anchor, placed either in the front or rear. Many users say that this setup delivers 70 to 80% of the sensation of a true 3 DOF system at nearly half the price. 3 DOF, vertical immersion. This is more common in a lot of setups. 4 actuators, one at each corner of the platform, unlocks pitch, roll, and full heave. With this layout, the motion mimics how suspension feels in a real car since the actuators sit like wheels. So in a racing sim, it adds true vertical cues, so you feel bumps, curbs, and surface changes with precision. In a flight sim, this can simulate turbulence, sudden altitude changes, or climbing through different air layers. For many sim racers and sim pilots, 3 DOF is really the sweet spot. It's immersive, versatile, and still practical for a home setup. Now, stepping up to a 4 DOF and adding yaw, with clever design, some platforms manage to add yaw, which is rotation again around the vertical axis, using just 4 actuators. So in a racing use, yaw feedback makes drifting, catching slides, and correcting oversteer feel far more lifelike. Combined with pitch, roll, and heave, the sense of realism jumps up significantly. The next is 5 DOF, where surge joins the mix. A 5 DOF setup usually combines a 3 DOF cockpit on top of a separate traction loss platform. This then adds surge, which is again the forward and back motion alongside with yaw. Now lastly, 6 DOF, which is the full experience. A true 6 DOF system covers every possible movement: pitch, roll, yaw, heave, surge, and sway. Unlike partial systems, nothing is missing here, so the motion feels completely natural. These are built on a Stewart platform design. 6 linear actuators connected to a rigid top plate, moving in perfect sync using inverse kinematics. This is the same technology behind the most advanced multi-million-dollar professional simulators. So at the end of the day, the right choice depends on your space, your budget, and your goals. Whether you're chasing better lap times, refining flight skills, or simply looking for the most immersive way to enjoy your sim. Whenever motion sims come up, whether for racing or flying, myths start to spread quickly. Some people dismiss them as overpriced, when the reality is, yes, they can be a massive investment, and even budget or entry-level setups can cost more than some people's entire sim racing setup. Now, others assume they're too loud, too big, or maybe too complex to ever fit in their home or setup. I've heard often from several people that motion also doesn't provide any real training value or help you improve your lap times. While that's maybe partly true, there are some real benefits to adding motion to your setup. So let's break down some of the most common myths and the facts that I think replace them. Number 1 is motion platforms are only for the rich. Well, full flight simulators for airlines or ones for race teams do cost millions, but compact home rigs are far more affordable these days. Entry-level 2 DOF systems can cost less than a high-end PC and monitor setup. Many platforms also allow you to upgrade gradually, but the reality is yes, motion systems are a significant cost due to the technology, materials, and manufacturing processes that go into a lot of these high-end setups to ensure they're safe, reliable, and immersive. Number 2, you need a huge room for motion. Modern systems these days are relatively compact. Many fit into the same footprint as a regular cockpit. Some seat movers even work in bedrooms or small offices. They're also much quieter than people think, more like a PC fan under load than industrial hydraulics. Number 3, this is one we hear often. It's cheaper just to buy a track car. Well, a real race car comes with constant costs: tires, brakes, fuel, insurance, storage, track fees, and the risk of crashes, obviously. A racing sim is typically a one-time investment unless you keep upgrading, with minimal ongoing cost. You can drive anytime, anywhere, and safely in any conditions. Number 4, they consume huge amounts of power. That was true with old hydraulic systems, though modern electric actuators are pretty efficient, often drawing less power than a gaming PC. Number 5, they're too noisy for home use. Modern actuators are actually quite quiet, comparable to a desktop PC maybe. They're usable even in apartments. Most of the noise comes from your rig itself when there's vibrations from the haptics. Number 6, motion can't replicate real vehicle dynamics. Now, this is partly true. No simulator can sustain real-world G-forces. But that's not the point. Motion rigs recreate the initial onset cues, the first tilt when braking, the body roll entering a corner, that your brain uses to understand motion. Add-ons like belt tensioners can enhance G-force impressions further though. Number 7, bigger motion is always better. Realism comes from the timing and accuracy, not the dramatic travel. Professional drivers often prefer smaller, precise ranges of motion because the cues feel correct. A long throw actuator may help in flight sims or for simulating steep gradients, but stroke length alone doesn't equal realism. Number 8, motion makes people sick. This is true for some, but poorly tuned motion can cause nausea. But properly synchronized rigs actually reduce sickness, especially in VR, because the body feels the same things the eyes see. Number 9, motion doesn't improve your lap times. Drivers with motion often improve braking consistency, grip, awareness, and overall confidence. This has been true for myself. The feedback helps develop muscle memory, which may then translate into faster or more stable laps, as long as you're practicing as well. Now lastly, number 10, VR makes motion unnecessary. While VR provides visuals, but without motion, your body is still missing these cues. Combining VR and motion delivers some of the most convincing immersion that I've tried and often reduces VR sickness. Now, before diving into a few key factors that I think are important to consider when you're shopping for a motion system, let me share some of my personal opinions. Motion should usually be one of the last upgrades in your sim racing setup journey. A solid chassis, a direct drive wheelbase, and perhaps pedals with a load cell brake, I think should all come first. Add that to a capable PC that can maintain high frame rates, and you'll already have a strong foundation for immersion and performance. Once these essentials are in place, motion I think becomes the next step if you're looking to elevate the experience even further. The first one is degrees of freedom, or DOF. 2, 2.5, or 3 DOF are plenty I think for most home users to achieve a strong immersion. Many systems allow upgrades, so you can start with 2 actuators and a pivot like Cubic does, or later add more actuators or traction loss for a 5 DOF or 6 DOF. The 6 DOF, the holy grail covering every possible axis of movement, is amazing for realism, but space, cost, and complexity make it maybe impractical for many home setups. Number 2, the simulator type. Are you mainly racing or flying or doing both? With racing sims, you're going to want to prioritize fast, sharp cues, road texture, gear shifts, braking jolts, and oversteer corrections. Quick actuator speed and low latency I think matter more here than larger travel distances. With flight sims, you want to emphasize smooth, sustained motion. For banking, climbing, descending, longer actuator stroke and good washout filters are going to make flight feel more natural. The good news here is most platforms on the market today can handle both styles, though some lean more toward one discipline: payload capacity. Remember that the weight limit isn't just you, it includes the cockpit, the seat, your wheel, pedals, and sometimes screens. Always calculate the full load and leave an extra 10 to 15% buffer. Speed and acceleration. As I mentioned before, realism often comes from the speed of response, not travel distance. For racing, a curb strike at high speed needs to hit fast and sharp. For flight, turbulence requires quick but controlled micro movements. Compare actuator speed ratings, which are normally listed in millimeters per second. A rig at 300 millimeters per second will feel dramatically more alive than one at 100 millimeters per second. Haptics and vibrations. Movement alone can't tell the whole story. Vibrations carry detail like engine rumble, wheel slip, or turbulence. Look for platforms with integrated haptic feedback in the 60 to 100 Hz range. This often removes the need for extra base shakers. Travel range. More isn't always better. In racing, a quick 1-degree roll can feel more convincing than a slow 5-degree tilt. In flight, more travel can help with climb and descent realism. It's all about the balance of speed, range, and timing. Latency. Motion must stay in sync with the visuals. If it lags, immersion breaks and nausea could set in. Professional-grade rigs hit under 15 to 20 milliseconds end-to-end latency. Be aware of manufacturers who only advertise 1 millisecond without explaining how it's measured. It often only covers microcontroller processing, not full system delay. Durability and maintenance. Look at the warranty terms, build quality, and spare parts availability. Good actuators can run thousands of hours before service. Avoid platforms using outdated tech like DC motors and gearboxes. They are going to wear faster and limit future upgrades. Ease of setup. Some systems are nearly plug and play, while others are going to require calibration, wiring, or mechanical work. Compact seat movers can be installed perhaps in an afternoon. 6DOF rigs are probably going to need multiple people or a pro installation. Cockpit compatibility. Not every rig matches every cockpit type. Aluminum profile cockpits tend to integrate more easily, whereas tubular frames may need additional adapters not sold by the company you're buying the motion system from, so always check compatibility first. VR and visual sync. Without proper VR motion compensation, head tracking can drift and cause discomfort. Look for systems with perhaps native motion compensation software, not third-party add-ons, for the best VR experience. Space requirements. Measure carefully. A large 6DOF platform can need an extra meter of clearance on all sides to avoid any collisions. Small rooms may be better suited to a compact system. Upgradability. Future-proof platforms let you add actuators, traction loss, or software upgrades over time. This lets you start small perhaps and scale towards your final dream rig. So what if you're not ready to make that leap? Is there a way to add more immersion without tearing your setup apart or draining your budget? One upgrade consistently surprises people, including myself, is the belt tensioner, something like the QS-BT1 from Cubic System that I reviewed not too long ago. It doesn't get the same spotlight as wheel or pedals, but once you've tried it, you'll immediately understand the hype. It changes how every lap or flight feels. Now, why do belt tensioners work? While a racing simulator without physical feedback can still feel incredible, it can feel flat at times. A motion platform fixes this by moving your entire rig. A belt tensioner takes a different approach. It pulls against your body through the seat harness. The tension and release happen in sync with what's happening in the sim. Braking, accelerating, turning, turbulence. Your chest and shoulders actually feel the forces your eyes are seeing, which makes the experience dramatically more convincing. That's why so many people describe it as surprisingly real after just a few sessions. In fact, many find that a belt tensioner adds more immersion than cheaper entry-level motion systems. So, what's the smart upgrade path here? Most people build their rig step by step. First, a solid chassis or foundation, and then a good wheelbase and pedals. Later, maybe a PC upgrade, and eventually motion if budget allows. Now, a belt tensioner fits perfectly into that journey. It feels like a giant leap in immersion without requiring a complete overhaul. And the best part, it never becomes obsolete. Even when you eventually add a motion platform, the two really complement each other. I have both on my rig and it's incredible. The belt tensioner provides sustained body pressure while the platform delivers that physical movement. Together, they create layered realism that gets you much closer to how it feels in the real world. So, some final thoughts here. The best motion platform depends on your goals, your space, and your budget. For most home users, starting with the 2 to 3 DOF and expanding over time probably makes the most sense. Professionals or training or sim centers are likely to jump straight into a 6 DOF for the best experience. But regardless of the setup, always remember motion, I think, is the final layer of immersion. Nail your chassis, wheelbase, pedals, and PC first, then add motion to complete the experience. Motion platforms aren't just about fun, they're about connection. They bridge what your eyes see and your hands do and your body feels. That's why drivers and pilots alike find themselves reacting faster, driving smoother, and feeling more confident after training with motion. It transforms a simulator from being something you watch into something you truly live. So whether you start small with a 2 DOF seat mover, add a belt tensioner along the way, or aim for that full 6 DOF experience, the important thing is to find the system that matches your journey. Done right, motion doesn't just make sim racing or flight simulation more immersive, it's going to make it unforgettable. So I hope you found this guide helpful, and if you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. I've got plenty more deep dives into sim racing hardware coming your way. And if you're thinking about getting motion for your setup, let me know in the comments what's on your upgrade path first, motion, pedals, or a new wheelbase. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe and enjoy your racing.